Hello, MCU fans. Today we're going to look at Moon Girl Season 2 and all of the massive multiversal connections, as well as some really cool Easter eggs. Now, about 8 months ago, I did a video called Why You Should Check Out Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. And in that video, it was a spoiler-free look at basically Season 1 to try to encourage people to check out the season. This video is definitely not going to be spoiler-free. There will be a lot of spoilers for Season 2. But as long as you're okay with that, then let's dive right in and see what we can find out. Don't forget, we have the February contest running all month long. Be a subscriber, leave a comment, and you might win a book or a steelbook. Best of luck. We also have the membership option in case you're interested in helping me with my goal of doing this full-time one day. You'll get lots of cool perks, including behind-the-scenes video, such as metrics on the videos, how they're doing, how they're performing, who's watching them, etc. But no matter how you support the channel, it's all greatly appreciated. Liking videos, leaving comments, subscribing, it all goes a long way, so thank you so much. All right, so Season 2 basically picks up right after the cliffhanger in Season 1. If you remember, Lunella was sucked into an interdimensional portal and had no idea where she was going to end up. In fact, the last thing we saw in Season 1 was her opening her eyes and wondering, where am I? Well, in Season 2, we find out she is on an interdimensional highway, and in pops her old friend, the Beyonder. The Beyonder has a much bigger presence in this season, which is great because the two of them together are so much fun. He says, "You're right. You're on an interdimensional highway, and that is no place for a human like you." So he helps her get off of the interdimensional highway. But before we leave the highway, I want to look at these visuals. And does this look familiar? Where have you seen this type of visual before? The answer would be Loki Season 1, Episode 6. Remember when we entered that black hole at the beginning of Episode 6 and traveled down these lines and eventually swung around the corner and we ended up at the Citadel at the end of time? Well, we're going to find out what I really think those visuals meant. I had always assumed these were the different timelines in the sacred timeline in the loom, and they may still be, but they look so similar to this interdimensional highway, and those black holes are going to come into play from Loki Season 1, Episode 6. So we'll get back to that. But in this case, Lunella exits the interdimensional highway and lands on a planet that the Beyonder has wrecked. What a surprise, right? Everything he does goes poorly. The Beyonder is great this season. In case you don't remember, or maybe you never knew, he is voiced by Lawrence Fishburne, who of course played Bill Foster in the MCU and played Morpheus in the Matrix trilogy. So great actor, does a fantastic job voicing the Beyonder. All right, and I also love their interplay. It's just so much fun. This is from a later episode in the season, but notice he's trying to explain something to Lunella that she already knows, and she's like, "Nobody asked you to Beyonder-splain this." I love that. It's so funny. Again, their interplay is just top notch. But soon the Beyonder realizes on this planet his powers are gone, and we'll see why they're gone in a moment. But there won't be any Beyonder-splaining for now because he can't do anything. And it's very interesting. Lunella says, she kind of laughs and then says, "Well, you said you wanted to know what being human was like." And that is a really cool Easter egg to the second Secret Wars. So the first one, second one in the 80s, I should say, Secret Wars 2. So there was two of them that came out in the 80s. And in the second one, the Beyonder, looking, yes, as cheesy as he looks there, decided he wanted to be human. He wanted to learn what it meant to be hungry and to need to sleep, etc. So I really think that's a very clever Easter egg that Beyonder loses his powers and learns, in this case, he was not willing to do it, he was forced into it, but to learn what it means to be human. So pretty cool Easter egg. All right, so this is great though. Lunella says, "Hey, we need to get back home, and to do that, we're going to use a black hole." So this is so cool. She says, when mass enters a black hole, it's at the risk of being stretched into a thin ribbon by the hole's gravitational pull. As it approaches the singularity, we all know what happens, right? Spaghettification. I love that they call it spaghettification. Of course, we all remember, thank you, Victor, it is nasty. You do not want to be spaghettified. But, Lunella explains, if an object travels through a non-spinning black hole fast enough, then it can make it through the singularity virtually unaffected. Wild. So notice she mentions singularity. That's a key word there. We'll come back to that word. But so she says, I just need to build something that will travel as fast as the speed of light to survive the travel. And the only thing theorized to yield, big word, Alcubierre warp drive is negative mass. So she has to travel at the speed of light to achieve basically warp drive, right? Hello Star Trek. and she's going to do it via negative mass. Well, this stuff sounds like gook. No, it's real. It's an actual real theory. The Albuquerque drive is a speculative warp drive idea according to which a spacecraft could achieve apparent faster than light travel by contracting space in front of it and expanding space behind it under the assumption that a configurable energy density field lower than that of a vacuum, that is negative mass, could be created. Can you believe it? So the Alcubierre and the negative mass, they're both real theories. Very, very cool. So then she says, that's it. I'll build a ship propelled by negative mass. So remember, she used the word singularity and negative mass. So now let's look at what we learned from the Marvels. So in the Marvels, Dar-Benn opened a rift. She didn't mean to, but she opened this rift, and we see a black hole there. And the black hole then ends up, going away, and the result is a tear between two alternate universes, 616 and what ends up being the X-Men universe. But look at how Monica describes this. A self-propagating singularity with negative mass. Oh my word. This is so cool. They're really tying all this stuff together. And who would have thought that the lines from the Marvels would actually have relevance when you look at season 2 of Moon Girl? and Moon Girl explained it even more than Monica did, because Monica kind of gave a short summary. Although Monica throws in one extra thing. She says, and it's got a non-Newtonian topology. Oh my word, these descriptions. And you see Kamala looking at her like, what are you talking about? Well, at least what I found on the internet is a non-Newtonian topology is a topology that gets really stiff when you hit it hard, but is soft and gooey when it's not stressed. So that's probably a layman's way of describing something that obviously can have multiple consistencies, hard, but also soft and gooey. So anyway, very, very cool that we're seeing all of this stuff come together. And what it appears is you can use this black hole, as long as you're going at the speed of light and it's a non-spinning black hole, you can use it to travel between alternate universes. Wild. Now, the real question is, does it still result in an incursion? Probably, but I don't know. I'd love your opinion on this stuff, because this is all new. We're learning this stuff on the fly, right? Okay, so while Lunella is still, though, in this world, the new planet that they're on, she meets her variants, Devil Girl and Moon Dinosaur. That's hilarious. But she refers to them as her alt versions of me, which is kind of clever. Ant-Man, I think, in his book also referred to alt versions. So that type of wording has been used elsewhere. But so in addition to meeting her variants, they also meet Molecule Man. So this is Molecule Man's planet, and he's obviously ticked off that the Beyonder has destroyed it, and so he's put up this anti-power grid, and that's why the Beyonder has ended up losing his powers. But here's the real key thing. It's Molecule Man. Oh my goodness. Because Molecule Man, in both the original Secret Wars and in the 2015 Secret Wars, was very important, as was the Beyonder. So we've now had introduced Molecule Man and the Beyonder. Granted, they're in Moon Girl. I understand that we need to see them in the MCU. But I can't help but wonder if they're not at least planting the seeds of these characters. Now, maybe not. These could just be Easter eggs, and neither the Beyonder nor Molecule Man will show up. But it's very, very interesting. So I love also that he is voiced by Edward James Olmos, who also voiced Gonzalez in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Olmos does a fantastic job playing Molecule Man. He is menacing. A great voice acting for the show. Then Molecule Man says, you don't stand a chance against the real big bads of this multiverse. So there's the term, right? He's dropping it, multiverse. And then also he says, the only thing that wasn't decimated, by the Beyonder was my wand. So I was like, wand? Wand? Molecule Man doesn't have a wand? What's going on? Well, actually he does, or he did. So in early appearances in the comics, he thought he had to use a wand to channel his powers. In fact, he's saying to Mr. Fantastic there, fool, I have only to tap my molecular wand against those bricks, ... So it's throwing down the threat, right? But he thinks he has to use that wand. So I love this. It's yet another really cool Easter egg that got me. I did not know until I did a little research. Now, eventually he gets rid of the wand because he doesn't need it. His powers don't require the wand. But Sure enough, they throw down this Easter egg with the wand. And of course, if you have a wand, you can end up losing a wand. So the Beyonder gets a hold of the wand, uses it to shut off the dampener for his powers, and suddenly now he can use his powers again. In fact, that's kind of interesting. It's almost like they dampened the powers in the TVA, remember? That Loki couldn't use his magic. So whatever the Molecule Man did with his wand made it so Beyonder couldn't use his powers. Fascinating. But anyway, so Beyonder's now got the wand back, and they're ready to return home. So, and he defeats Molecule Man for the time being, although Molecule Man will return. So notice they head into the black hole, and look at this imagery. Doesn't that look so similar to what we saw in the Marvels? I'm telling you, Feige's a genius, man. There's so many connections, even in things like Moon Girl. Craziness. So yeah, they say, here we go, and they travel through the black hole safely because they go at the speed of light. Very, very cool. And I think now we may finally understand these black holes in Loki Season 1, Episode 6. Because if you remember, we started in the black hole on the left, and we exited it, and then we entered the black hole on the right. So I think it was Waldron's way, or whoever was writing at that point, because I think Waldron and somebody else shifted writing back and forth. But anyway, it was their way of trying to say, this is how you go between two alternate universes. And now we're seeing it in Moon Girl, and we're seeing it in the Marvels. So it's all really coming together. I love this so much, so much. Very, very cool. This is interesting, though. As Kamala is heading home through the black hole, she starts to shake. And notice the closed captioning says glitching intensifies. Now, I haven't decided if this is like Spider-Verse glitching or just if she's having panic attacks, because I do know she is definitely having panic attacks. She's scared to death by the fact that she couldn't defeat the Molecule Man. She almost died. And if it wasn't for the Beyonder stealing that wand and getting his powers back, she'd be dead. So she is definitely having panic attacks. But is this also an homage to the Spider-Verse and glitching? Because it is an animated universe, right? Very interesting. Let me know what you think in the comments. Assuming you've watched Season 2, do you think she was glitching similar to what happened in Across the Spider-Verse? All right, so when she gets home, we kind of get an Easter egg towards Endgame in the quantum realm, because she thinks she's been gone for a longer time, and they're like, no, you've only been gone for 2 hours. So it's similar to Scott Lang, in Endgame, where he thought he was gone for 5 hours, and it turned out to be 5 years. So pretty wild. Basically, time is confusing when you're traveling around the quantum realm. Which I don't know that that's the quantum realm because they went through a black hole, but isn't it interesting that the same type of time differentiation happened? So it does all seem to tie together somehow. Kind of wild. All right, so I love Lunella's grandmother. She's one of my favorite characters, and she's so soft and peaceful and kind and loving and caring, and it's funny to realize that she's played by a character that was not loving and caring in the MCU, and that would be Mariah Dillard. Yes, Alfre Woodard plays the grandmother in Moon Girl. Just so funny. Just shows her range, right? That she can be so sweet and so, well, not sweet. Then this is kind of wild. These terms, darn it, these terms. So instead of referring to it as universes, they refer to it as dimensions, because Lunella's saying, hey, I didn't get amnesia. I was just hopping dimensions. Oof. But I get it. Basically, each character is describing things as they understand it. So from an in-universe standpoint, it makes sense, but it just gets confusing when they keep, interweaving these terms. So we have to focus on the concepts and not as much worry about the terms. I'm pretty sure, I'm 100% sure she went between universes, not dimensions. But anyway, so then now let's move to some of the Easter eggs that we learned throughout the season. Lots of cool things here. So she gets a new suit. Notice it's a stealth suit, so that's pretty cool. And then later we actually see her going full invisible. Of course, you got to get the banana off your head, the banana peel, because that doesn't help. But it's really cool. She gets some new tech. Also, we get a nice little Easter egg about the Sanctum Sanctorum. So yay, Doctor Strange there, as she refers to her workspace area as the Sanctum Sanctorum. We get a Maria Hill appearance. In fact, a couple of them. R.I.P. Hill. Such a bummer. And of course, she's still working for S.H.I.E.L.D. So in Lunella's universe, at least, Maria's alive and S.H.I.E.L.D. is intact. And Maria appears again later, arrests a teddy bear. I won't even go into it. You got to watch the episode. But it's just cool because they shove the bear into the car, and we see the S.H.I.E.L.D. logo as it takes off. So pretty cool. Then there's lots of villains that are from the comics. It's really neat. Maki Matsumoto, a la Lady Bullseye. That's a character from the comics, and there you can see what she looked like in the comics versus in the Moon Girl. We have Melvar and Padvar, two major Kree characters from the comics. Melvar is the kid there, and that's what he looked like in the comics. Of course, he's actually Kree. That's his human disguise. And then Padvar is his dad, and really mean, obviously, but very well done. They refer to Earth as Planet C-53, which is what it's referred to quite often in the comics. And then, of course, Melvar is also Kid Kree. So here we see him in his Kree uniform. I'm the mighty warrior here to vanquish you in the name of the Kree Empire. I'm Kid Kree. So he starts off kind of as an adversary to Lunella, but, it looks like they might be forming a relationship before this is all done. And, of course, here's what he looked like in the comics. So another cool adaptation from comics to animated form. Okay, then this is probably my favorite because I love Spider-Man. I admit it. I love him. This is a cheesy character from Spider-Man comics, Jackson Wheel, a.k.a. the Big Wheel. So he's entering a contest with this other guy, Theodore Zimmer, with Dogbot, who I do not believe is from the comics. He's just a funny character. But they fight their robots. So in he sends the Big Wheel, which ends up wiping out and totally embarrassing him, and he's humiliated. So Jackson Wheel comes back in his own Big Wheel, his giant vehicle. And yeah, that is ripped right out of the comics. Spider-Man 183. I remember reading this when I was a kid. I loved this comic because that is basically this cheesy wheel that just rolled around shooting at stuff. It climbed up buildings, jumped between buildings. It was so ridiculous, so outlandish, but it's so much fun. So yeah, loved that. Little comic book Easter egg. We also have a vibranium alloy that's used to make Lunella's new suit. So that's really interesting. Maybe in her universe, Wakanda shared vibranium a little more, or maybe these guys stole it. But these are scientists helping her with a new suit, and we see her new suit. This is V1.1. She eventually puts on the rest of her output over this, but I think this is where she gets her stealth tech, and now has a vibranium, obviously, to protect her more. So pretty cool. Not much to add here, other than it is an inflate-a-butt that was added to her costume that helps her if she falls down. So I love it. We get a visit from a representative from Wakanda, Dr. Ojo. I do not believe that she's a character from the comics. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was cool to see someone from Wakanda show up, as they did in the first season as well. And then we get this totally cheesy villain, the Jester. I mean, ridiculous in Moon Girl because he was ridiculous in the comics. How do you make this character anything but ridiculous, right? But it was great. Another Easter egg. Love it. Aragorn, there's several pets from different superheroes that show up. Aragorn, of course, is the steed of the Black Knight, and then eventually a Valkyrie. We have Tooth Gnasher, who, of course, showed up in Thor Love and Thunder. That was fun. We have Redwing, who, of course, is the Falcon's bird in the comics, and then is a drone, more of a drone-type vehicle in the MCU. But I love it. Those were all three great. We have references to WHIH News, which hasn't really done too much in the MCU recently, but was huge for years across the MCU, both the TV shows and the movies. Now, this is kind of funny. Franklin the dog is not a character from the comics, but it's the voice actor that I love, David Tennant. He rocks. Of course, remember, he played Kilgrave in Jessica Jones, but he also was Doctor Who. And they have a fun little reference, Easter egg to Doctor Who when he takes off in his TARDIS-like vehicle there at the end of the episode. So that was kind of fun. Then another cool voice actor, this Dr. Stern, who is not a character from the comics, but he is this really annoying curator at a museum yelling at all the kids. But he is voiced by Peter Weller, who played RoboCop. I didn't realize it at first, but once I caught on, I'm like, oh my goodness, that's him. He was epic. He was just epic. Then this is kind of cool. Pops and Vernell, Vernell's a new character that comes in, are in constant competition to make figure out who is number one fan of Moon Girl. And she sends them both a message saying, you're my number one fan. They're both saying at the same time, I knew I was the biggest fan. But then they have to respond to an invite. And they're both boomers, so they immediately are like, no, wait, no, what do I see? What do I press? What do I press? It was really funny. But what's also interesting is Vernell is played by Arsenio Hall. Once again, I did not recognize him until I saw him in the credits. He's done so much different voice acting and is very good at disguising his voice. But yeah, he was hilarious in this season. Then we have the Blue Streak, which is another total cheesy villain. Notice he's got roller skates. They're cool looking roller skates, but definitely roller skates. And sure enough, in the comics, he had roller skates. I don't know where they get all these villains. I mean, I know they get them from the comics, but how do they find them? I mean, you got to search to find these C-list, D-list, F-list villains, right? But this is kind of cool. When Kamala is fighting him, notice she's got shields on her arms, and that looks to me a lot like the tech we saw in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. In fact, Coulson had that shield that he used many times. Very cool. We get a little call out to Korath when there's a crystal of Korath that shows up. I don't think the crystal of Korath is from the comics, but definitely Korath is from the MCU. So yay, nice to see him get a nice reference there, Easter egg. Then they talk about Bloodvember in the Kree episode, that it's the Kree Festival of Battle. And I looked up Bloodvember, and sure enough, there is a Bloodvember, which is a horror fest, which I admit I'm a horror junkie, especially bad horrors, horror movies. So yeah, I got to go to Bloodvember. I got to check this out now, right? Too funny. Then we have a reference to Korg and Dwayne there when Lunella is talking about different couples. You probably remember them from Thor, Love and Thunder. Dwayne The Rock. Of course, you get that joke, Dwayne The Rock Johnson. But you see his cheesy mustache. So funny. So that was a fun little Easter egg. Turbo is actually helps Lunella. They kind of fight each other at first, but she's actually a superhero. And sure enough, she's a superhero in the comics as well. So they pulled her. And then they're fighting Silvermane. Now, Silvermane is a villain that's been around the Spider-Man comics forever, but his little metal suit there always kind of creeped me out. And there he is in the comics fighting Spider-Man. Dude's like 90, but he's a robot. So he's a 90-year-old robot. I got 90-year-old Transformer, whatever, right? But no, I always enjoyed him. Good Easter egg. And then finally, the Molecule Man returns in the last episode of the first half of the season. So the season's been split into two halves. And the first half ends with Molecule Man attacking Lunella in her house. He says, basically, I used this little piece of her suit to track you down across the multiverse. Now he doesn't need his wand anymore because he realized he can manipulate his own matter. So I think that if Molecule Man does show up in the MCU, like in Secret Wars, clearly he'll be at this point in his life cycle of being able to not have to use the wand. But yeah, he is menacing. Very, very scary in this episode. I mean, you're afraid for everybody throughout the whole episode. At one point, his Lunella's mom jumps in front and gives a nice little Easter egg when she says, I won't even need gamma rays to go full Hulk on you. But obviously, it's not going to end well if they really do fight. So Lunella finally jumps in and tries to appeal to his better nature and explaining, hey, look, you've got your powers back. Now you can fix your world beyond a wrecked. And ultimately, Molecule Man agrees. In fact, even in the comics and in Secret Wars, he was never really a bad guy. I mean, he was sometimes, but at heart, he wasn't a terrible person. So it is neat to see him kind of turn around and realize, okay, I need to go back, fix my planet, but first, let me fix your home up, because he kind of demolished it. But then we get the end of season 2, the cliffhanger this time around. So she's not sent to an interdimensional world. Instead, she's told by her mom, you ain't never doing this again. You know, her mom's like, hey, I compliment you. You were great. I love that you're a superhero and you've done great things, but it's over. You're not doing it again. And they end with Lunella, once again, wide-eyed, staring through her glasses, going, oh my. So it's kind of funny that the mid-season cliffhanger is the same as last season's cliffhanger, basically, right? Where she's just staring through the glasses going, oh my goodness, what's going to happen now? So yeah, you got to check it out. If you haven't seen season 2, it's worth a watch. But also, just leave in the comments what you think about those multiversal ramifications. I mean, have they firmly now established that you can travel between alternate universes using a black hole? You got to be careful, obviously, but using a black hole. And can you do it without creating an incursion? Lots of questions to be answered. Hopefully, we'll learn more in Deadpool 3 right around the corner. So there you go. Leave your comments. Also, in fact, leave your comments, because if you're a subscriber and you leave a comment, you might win a book or a steelbook, right? Also, we have the membership option if you're interested in that. And finally, we do have the Discord server. We're doing rewatches. We have the Comic Club, MMRPG, lots of cool retrospectives. And we're even doing an iceberg because the server is celebrating being around for a year now. 1,100 members. Love to have you join as well. I will leave a pinned comment so you can join the server if you're interested. Also, if you don't mind, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out more content, and we'll all continue to enjoy the ever-growing, ever-changing Marvel Cinematic Universe.